Kevin. Kevin.
Hey, what's up, Steve?
How you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
All right, we're getting some people here. I'm good. Justin. So there's one more chapter. I'm working on it now. It's an interesting one. How to work on a swing change.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
I think that's the one that a lot of teachers are going to be interested in. So, all right, we'll just wait another minute or two. How are things in Singapore? What's going on there?
Oh, well, we're in a 2-month lockdown that will end on the 1st of June. So just waiting patiently for that day to come.
It'll end when?
1st of June.
What is that, 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, another 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah. Now, Kevin, where are you?
I'm in Fort Myers.
What's going on? Where do you teach there?
At Gateway. You know it?
Do you know Adam at Mediterra?
I don't. I follow him. I follow Adam. He's really good at what he does.
Yeah, I give past 3 years I've given clinics there.
Oh, nice.
So if you ever want to, have a fluid motion factor clinic, but hopefully you'll be able to get it.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting club. It's Gateway is, well, Fort Myers in general. The golf there it's a little different. It's a Midwest area during the season, and it's weird because it's like you're in the middle of this area where, say, down you go to Naples, it's huge money. People spend like, okay, say your golf lesson's $200 an hour, no problem. You go there, it's like, we charge 125, and they're like, can you bargain? Can I knock you down? And it's like, oh, it's so frustrating, man.
Yeah, I know. They're holding on to the retirement check. Okay, it's 11:05, so we'll get going here. If everyone can mute your computer or your phone, unless you want to speak, that'd be great, because there was some difficulty in understanding some people. Other people mentioned that. So, okay, I leave it up to you guys. What do you got?
Well, I got something for you from last week, or not really, well, the other day, whatever it was we met, was, I don't remember the coach's name, but he was talking a lot about, acceptance. Do you remember his name, the older coach that was online?
Yes, John Hobbins, I think.
Yeah, I think that was him. It's funny, I dug this out. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I dug this out, and I had this from my coach for the last, 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was, so important in all the mental stuff we worked on. And he, like what he taught, I actually introduced him to your stuff, like not what you gave me, but the books, like Fluid Motion Factor, and, the other one, about the 7 Secrets of World-Class Athletes. And he's like, he basically was like, wow, that's exactly the kind of stuff I'd been telling you. Because he was never a mechanical coach. He was always a mind coach. And he always believed that no matter what, he says, if you chase the mind, the swing will come. He says that you have inherent feels and positions that will happen if you find that connection between the body and the mind.
You know, it's brilliant, and it's actually fits into what I just wrote 10 minutes before I turned on this computer. And I was talking about swing changes. And what happens, and what I've experienced for so many years, is that if you get the cerebellum to work correctly, which is the main, you know, that's sort of the motherboard of the processes in the mind. This is in all sports. The body will start to default to more comfortable, powerful positions, even if it doesn't know what those positions are. It does not have to have the intellectual understanding. The genius, it's like a kid who's learning to ride a bike, 4 or 5 year old kid. You can't give him instructions on how to ride a bike. It's impossible. But if there's enough, you know, and again, it's a little challenging for a 4 or 5 year old kid, but if his cerebellum starts to work correctly, the flow of information, the flow of intelligence between the mind and the body is the body will start to default to what is necessary to actually ride a bike. Now, it's no different with a golf swing. Now, a golf swing, in my opinion, is the most unnatural motion of any sport, all right? It's not how someone would do a natural motion. Someone would do a natural motion, they would chop wood like this, but you can't. You have to, the left side has to dominate and the right side has to be passive. So it's not a natural motion. Throwing a baseball is a natural motion. Serving is a natural motion. Shooting a basketball is a natural motion. A hockey stick in hockey is a natural motion. Golf is not a natural motion. So because it's not a natural motion, you have to access a more subtle level of the mind than you do in throwing a baseball. Anyone can throw a baseball. You put a golf club in someone's hand, no, I mean, it's rare that someone has a natural swing out of the gate. But usually you have to go in there and do surgery, some kind of surgery. Even, you know, when Tiger was learning or Rory was learning, okay? Obviously what they saw was a piece of clay that was already highly molded into a certain, you know, they could see the potential, but nevertheless, there still had to be some adjustments. So the golf swing, more than any other motion in sports, needs the cerebellum. It needs the cerebellum. And I just wrote, literally I just wrote, because I'm writing this last chapter, that in my opinion, and again, it's only my opinion, the main responsibility that an instructor should have when they're teaching someone is to set up an environment where their cerebellum is working correctly. Now, if they don't do that, which is a subtle environment, it's not, there's two kinds of ways that there's two kinds of ways that someone can teach that I write in the book, okay? There's the you did it, you didn't do it mode. You did it, you didn't do it. You're working on a certain swing change, right? She's whipping the club. Let's say she's whipping the club inside and you want her to take it more straight back to keep it on plane, right? So you explain what you want her to do, or him, and then you have them do it, hitting balls, right? And then what most instructors say, you did it. Oh, no, you didn't do it. You did it. You didn't do it. So until, oh yeah, you did it. Okay, that's good. We got it. But what do you really have? What you have is she's looking at 200 balls. She can hit as many balls until she gets it. And then she gets to the course. Oh, where is it? I did it so well on the range. So what's happening is in the I did it, I didn't do it mode. I did it, I didn't do it mode. You're not associating the processes in the mind with her ability to do it successfully. It's quite a profound point, I think. You're not associating the processes in the mind that allowed her to take the club back the way you wanted her to take it back, and essentially the way she has to take it back if she's gonna be any kind of golfer. So when you're in the I did it, I didn't do it mode, you're not accessing the cerebellum. The cerebellum is like you know, 25, 30%. I mean, I'm just coming up with a number, what I feel, what I see, ability to sink the other parts of the swing. So because, and then the deposit you make in the basal ganglia, let's say she has no muscle memory of how to take it back correctly, okay? She doesn't have money in the bank in respect to that. The deposit you make in the basal ganglia is a very weak deposit. It's not a strong deposit because you're not associating it with the processes in the mind that actually allowed you to make the swing. So what happens, because it's like weak tea, it's not a strong deposit. So what happens is that when she goes to, okay, she reaches a certain level of success on the range, and then she goes to the course, and of course, where's all her attention? Well, it's certainly not in creating the processes in the mind that actually allowed her to do it successfully on the range. It's completely on the part, and then wholeness is shattered. And then she goes back, and you go back and forth. This, in my opinion, is the main reason why golfers don't get better, is because they're not associating success with what actually allowed you to have success. So when you do this, and I give a step-by-step understanding or a direction on how to do this, what you're doing is you're setting up the environment for the cerebellum to be in charge, which means the teacher, to some degree, has to leave their ego at the door. Because usually it's the teacher, now you have to do this, you have to do this, and do this, and do this, which you have to show them what to do. But if you don't create this environment where the cerebellum is teaching that young child how to ride a bike or throw a baseball, then what you're doing is you're slowing down the rate of progress. And when the cerebellum does kick in correctly, then what happens is automatically, and this student has no idea what correct positions are. They have never read a golf magazine or an instruction book or Golf Digest or a YouTube video or taken any lessons from anybody. You know, the body will start to default to the more correct positions, not necessarily 100% correct, but it'll be moving in that direction to repeat a motion that is simpler, more powerful, that because the inner intelligence is starting to take over, that will allow the club to come back to square at impact and get that ball in the air. I've seen this innumerable times in many different sports. The cerebellum is the genius. So instructors in every sport should know how to set up that environment.
Stephen, I got something for you. Can you hear me all right?
Mark, I certainly can.
Good, thank you. Putting, okay, I'm struggling a little bit with the putting aspect of it. Let me kind of describe what I'm doing, and you can tell me where I'm breaking wholeness, or I don't know if it's my algorithm before I get up to the putt, but I'm burying the DNA goal. I'm not thinking about the target. I'm visualizing the putt before I hit it, kind of seeing the wholeness of the stroke. You know, even going up and I'm doing 987, and I'm hitting putts that don't make any sense. And I say that because they'll be 10 feet short, they'll be 15 feet long. There's no connection to the target. Am I not doing a good enough job in my algorithm? I'm trying to, you know, not think about anything. Maybe I'm making the stroke the star of the show. I don't know, but I'm making a lot of good strokes, rolling the ball beautifully. I'm not nervous, and I'm not making anything. What do you think?
Okay. I think we all feel your pain, Mark.
I bet you do.
I feel it to the depth of my golfing core. Okay, so I'm just going to do this in my mind. I'm going to just put myself in your, put myself where you're at. Okay, so there's a lack of the correct intelligence flowing from the mind to the body, okay?
Okay.
Because when you're doing the algorithm, you're taking into consideration the speed, right?
Right.
Now, it sounds to me that what you're doing is lackadaisical. You are, it's lazy. It's not apropos to the situation at hand. So what that means is you think you're making a smoothie, but you're not making a smoothie. So because in the blender, you're putting in distance, right? Which is good,
Right.
right? But somehow that is not blending with the other ingredients seamlessly. It may not be breaking wholeness, but on one level, it is breaking wholeness, because if there was a threshold level of wholeness with all the ingredients, okay, mixed together, speed, distance, putting stroke, whatever, then that would translate into a better stroke, okay? So I'm going to give you something to do, right?
Okay.
What I'd like you to do is to putt to no target, okay?
Okay.
When you putt to no target, it's a completely natural stroke, correct? Because there's no ramifications, right?
Right.
So I want you to putt to no target, no hole, and then I want you to putt to a hole. And I want you to gauge how you feel inside when you putted to no hole versus when you putted to a hole. Because what's happening is the word that comes to mind, even though it's a little harsh word, is it's unnatural. It's unnatural what you're feeling because you're not taking into consideration the job you have to do, which means you're a little lackadaisical, meaning that, oh, I don't have to care, I don't have to do that. Now, there has to be a certain amount of focus in what you're doing. This program is not a program to eliminate thinking, that you don't have any thoughts at all. No, I've never told someone not to think, because it really doesn't matter what you think. It matters how you think. So there's something unnatural that you're feeling inside, because if it was unnatural, if it was natural, and you did have the correct algorithm, which means that you determine the correct speed, your distance would be, around the hole somewhere, if not making, half of them. So no hole, no hole, until there's no difference in how you feel. Because what's happening is you're in the back of your stroke, and the correct information is not flowing from your mind to your body on how, where you should stop in the back of your stroke and what the acceleration should be through the stroke, which will determine the speed. That information is not coming down. There's a block. There's a block in the flow. So the block in the flow, I think, is that you're trying to create too much of a mood. You're not being Cyndi Lauper enough, true colors. So try that, and I'd be very curious. Just send me a text and let me know how it went.
Okay, and on that note, I've actually tried that a few times on the practice green. And I think when I get on the course, when you're putting to no hole, you don't really try to control speed or distance. And so that's kind of what I'm telling myself maybe a little bit is there's no hole, just make a good stroke with good rhythm. And I said, well, no wonder it's not going the right distance. There's no hole.
No, it's
I don't know if that's too much target information or not.
You're setting up too much of an unnatural scenario, okay?
Okay.
You're setting up, okay, que sera, what difference does it make, right?
Yeah.
What difference does it make? I'm just going to bury the DNA. Well, that's not apropos to the situation you have at hand. That's not natural, because there has to be a little focus. You just can't have this unbounded freedom. I can do whatever I want, and no. I'll tell you what that is, Mark. It's the fourth pitfall. Mood making.
All right.
No mood making. I want you to be natural. In a soft way, but natural.
Okay. Try
Let me know, okay?
Will do.
Good. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, Steve.
Yes, James.
Steve. Yeah, I noticed that the issue of thoughts and tranquility or more silence in my mind as I'm going through. I've only done chapter 1 and chapter 2, and I've noticed a lot of silence and freedom, and not having my mind busy with different things. I found that extremely interesting.
It's a positive thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you're doing a fluid cue or just understanding this program, and it's having that effect.
Yeah.
And are you talking about during a swing on the court?
I've only done it with putting and with chipping, but not with full swing or anything like that, since I can't play golf, since we have the golf clubs that are closed.
Yes. Well, that will be a natural byproduct. Remember,
Okay. Yeah.
What is natural? You have to always go back to what is natural. What is natural for the mind to experience when it's creating emotion? What's the default state? How did the creator create the mind to produce fluid motion in the most effective and efficient way? And it's the same for everybody, right? So you go back to that understanding of the mind is like an ocean. There are surface levels and there are deeper levels. Now, when you're doing a calculus problem, when you're arguing a case in court, well, the prefrontal cortex more or less has to be involved. When you're producing another activity in life, experiencing another activity in life, like motion, the prefrontal cortex does not have to be involved. In fact, the mind thrives on silence. It's very natural. You know, again, think of the second ball syndrome, where you have no idea this program. You've never been exposed to this program. How much activity is there in the mind on the second ball, which is the most natural state? It's nothing, zero. And how do you usually hit that second ball? Well, most probably hit it a lot better than the first, right? So that's sort of your baseline. Everyone has set a baseline without them being aware of what the baseline is. Think of when you go to the range and you drop a bucket of balls. How silky smooth and completely effortless, like a Freddie Couples universe, does your swing feel, okay? But then you say to yourself, well, this is just the warm-up. Let's get serious now, okay? And you're lost. I mean, then it's just,
the focus changes.
The focus changes. So what should be the focus? You know, you have to look at, I always go back to this Tiger quote, because everyone feels that Tiger distinguished himself by the tremendous amount of focus, concentration, and determination and will to win that he had far and above the field. It's just another quality of focus. Yet he says, there have been major tournaments. I took the club out of the bag. I didn't remember anything until I saw the ball land on the green. He calls it, I saw one of his videos on it, he calls it a blackout. He feels like he blacked out, which is just, I mean, could you be more than 180 degrees from that in your understanding of Tiger? No, it's the farthest you can be. So I consider Tiger to be the supreme athlete in any sport, okay? Because it's so impossibly difficult to dominate a sport like he's dominated, where his winning percentage was like 33%. When in his prime, he would win every, 1 out of every 3 tournaments. Now you have to put Nicklaus in that same category. Where he ended up in the majors is incredible. I think he had 50 top 5s. I mean, it's extraordinary. So, but then if you ask Jack, which I don't know if I'll ever have the opportunity to do that, Jack, what did you experience during the swing? Not what you experienced before, not what you experienced after, just during that 1.5 seconds. And I think that, I don't know. I can't talk for him. So, but then someone has to ask, well, if you have a lot of swing thoughts, aren't you thinking of the swing thoughts? I mean, he had 4 or 5 swing thoughts. I'm sure Tiger did as well. But Tiger had that blackout. I blacked out. But he still had the swing thoughts. How does that work? Well, how it works is that when you create that algorithm, you will never forget it if your mind is quiet. It's impossible to forget. You don't have to remind yourself. And the great ones have the ability to bury that algorithm almost to the point of non-existence. I took the club out of the bag. I didn't remember anything until I saw the ball land on the green. Almost out of non-existence, but not quite. Something was pulsating. Something was resonating where he was thinking of those swing thoughts. But it's almost like when you're driving and you do something completely unconsciously, you avoid the truck, you avoid, you made the left at the turn, okay? You stopped at the light, but it didn't feel like the mind was engaged at all. But it was engaged, only it was engaged on a deeper, more powerful level. Kevin, I can't hear you.
I've actually talked to a couple of guys that experience that, and they literally call it like daydreaming. And it's like they actually feel like they're in a movie, and they're just experiencing it almost like as if it's an out of body experience. Does that make sense?
100%.
So,
it makes sense 100%.
yeah. So it's like, like I've even heard Nicholas talk about it, where it was like that for him. It's like he could literally step in, before he even pulled the club out of the bag, and he'd literally watch himself like it was a movie.
Okay, so this is a brilliant, extremely profound point. Okay, because what happens is that that's an experience of a higher state of consciousness where you're witnessing your action, where the mind becomes so absorbed in silence that you feel you're not attached to the body. You just feel like you're out of the body, watching yourself compete. That's the experience I had on the tennis court in 1975. It was interesting. I felt I was watching myself play without any micromanaging, and there was an intelligence that was in charge that I felt I really didn't have control over. But it was like I was defaulting to a higher level of intelligence that I was just watching, like I'm watching this intelligence operate. I'm not micromanaging it at all. Now, to have that experience, a lot of people have these experiences, these higher states of consciousness, it's the experience of it, where they feel they're out of their body, or they feel they're witnessing themselves do something. But that could be a walk in the woods, or that could be, with someone you love. But when you're on the back nine in Augusta on Sunday and you have that experience, that indicates a very highly evolved nervous system. And really what separates these great athletes is that they are pre-wired differently than an ordinary athlete, that they have access automatically. Tiger out of the gate, Nicklaus out of the gate, Rory out of the gate, Federer took a little while, Nadal out of the gate, okay? Is that they were born with a pre-wiring. And what's the pre-wiring? What's the final result of the pre-wiring? Their cerebellum works more efficiently. End of story. What separated Tiger and Jack and even Federer and these guys, Nadal, again, it's not the quality of their motion. It's the quality of their silence. But the quality of their silence indicates when it's at a deeper level that their cerebellum is going to function at a higher level of integration. If you have everybody's cerebellum working at its highest level on the PGA Tour, no one would win more than one tournament. Nobody. And same thing, you know, in the LPGA Tour. Because yes, Tiger's swing was magnificent. Yes, he had the power and the strength, but there are plenty of guys that can compete with him on the range. Though I did hear, and correct me, you guys have been more in the industry than I have, longer. I heard that the sound of the ball, which means how it's compressed, is different with a Jack or a Tiger or a Koepka or, you know, Michelle Wie in her prime, which indicates that the quality of the swing was something very special. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. But nevertheless, if the ball is going straight and it's going far, the sound of the ball is going to be secondary to the quality of the shot. Now, it could be that the machinery that produced the shot is just absolutely perfect. But at the end of the day, you know, you have a Lee Trevino swing, you have a Miller Barber swing, you have a Furyk swing, and then you have an Adam Scott swing. So it's you know, getting the ball in the hole, now not how you got it in the hole. So I still feel, now correct me if I'm wrong, I'd be interested in hearing your opinion, is that if everyone was able to have their cerebellum working correctly, which means they always bring their A game, would someone still dominate the tour?
No. No way. You know, it's like funny you mentioned Adam Scott. Adam Scott, like from a physical standpoint, is probably in the top 3 most talented in the world. But mentally, he's weak, and he knows it. And he doesn't have the full confidence to go along with his God-given, you know, talent. You know, where a guy like Tiger's even talked about that he has to work 10 times harder than anybody else in order to play at that high level because he doesn't believe that his physical abilities are as good as others.
He really said that.
He said that. He said it to John Daly.
Well, his work ethic is second to none, probably, you know, one of the greatest work ethics of any athlete in any sport. If you read Hank Haney's book and, you know, the thing, what he talks about. But really, what separates, and it's in all sports, it's all the same, is what separates athletes is in pressure situations, they're able to sink down here. They're able to access a fluid motion factor, where that signal goes right to the motor system and the cerebellum starts working like nobody's business. That is easier said than done if you're a professional athlete. And, you know, I worked with a really good player, and he couldn't do it under the gun. He could not do it. This is a player, you know this name, I'm not going to say it. He could not do it. He knew he was totally sold out. He knew exactly what he had to do. He couldn't access it. There was a block. There was a block. And the block has nothing to do with the swing. Their swings are great. Who doesn't have a good swing? It's this ability to access the correct use of the cerebellum in pressure situations. So if he was brought up from the age of 9 or 10 or whenever he started to use abstract criteria, to set one, to understand how the cerebellum works, to understand the fluid motion factor, to start culturing the mind right out of the gate, to have their default state as abstraction or silence and wholeness, guaranteed he would have a better chance. Not to say that he could do it, because even when it's cultured, they just can't do it. You know, it's just the nature of the beast for different people. It wasn't their destiny. You know, it was Tiger's destiny and Jack's destiny and Rory's destiny. It wasn't Adam Scott's destiny. It wasn't Tom Weiskopf's destiny. Okay, it wasn't, you know, Baker Finch. Okay, how much talent? Or Johnny Miller. how many majors do you think Johnny Miller really should have won? I mean, so, and Lee Trevino versus Johnny Miller, come on. But Lee Trevino accessed that level of silence, and he loved it when the pressure was on. Of course, when you're growing up and you're playing, $100 Nassau, and you got $20 in your pocket, you better perform. All right. Yes, James.
Stephen, going back a little bit to what you just mentioned about the cerebellum functioning very efficiently.
Yes.
And that thought and that explanation as to differentiating top tour players,
Yes.
Jack or Tiger, or maybe in basketball, MJ. Would you be able to, maybe not in this conversation that we're having as a group, but maybe in an email or something different, maybe suggest some books that might focus on either the how to use the cerebellum more efficiently, or more information as to why the cerebellum I understand that the cerebellum works kind of like managing the different stages and the different cognitive processes, but a lot of what your book talks about and what I've read so far is very abstract, and that's very interesting, talking about the wholeness of everything and it all being very silent and very just flowing. So we're not trying to create something. And so would you have a suggestion on something related to that, of the efficiency of the cerebellum, and maybe how to discover maybe exercises or something that could be practiced, since this goes very well with your program?
Okay, there's a few different questions that you asked. I'll try to answer.
Oh, sorry about so many questions, guys.
Yeah, I got them. So what I wanted to avoid was going too deep in what you just asked.
Okay.
Because the whole goal is not so much to understand how the cerebellum works, but set up the circumstances and the environment so that it can work. So this is a practical application. It's not an intellectual understanding. You don't need the intellectual understanding.
Okay.
You yourself are just curious about it, which I understand, but I would never start talking about that, because if you dive in that direction, you're just going to complicate everything. A little knowledge is dangerous. So you'll start thinking, is the cerebellum? No, just set one. Okay. Just do abstract criteria. Okay. Just have a 10 level of acceptance before you take one step in the ball, and you'll be fine. Now, interesting story I'll tell you. Could I just finish, Mark? Is that all right?
Yeah.
So, trying to be humble here. So I sold a lot of focus bands, maybe 70, which is a lot, because you know how much they are. They're what, $500 each or something like that. I loved the focus band. I absolutely loved it. I thought it, and I still think it's the greatest training aid ever developed. And then I got to the fourth set of fluid cues. And I knew they were really powerful to have a 10 level of acceptance before you walked in, and a 10 level of wholeness, or 10 level of wholeness. If you haven't read it, you'll read it. And then what I noticed when I started using the focus band with my students is we put the focus band on, we get the green light and the motion and the sound, okay? And then I would take it off. And then I would say, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to do this fluid cue. And when they did the fluid cue, actually they had it on, they immediately got the motion. They immediately went into that state. And I realized, oh, this is an easier way to train the mind. Rather than having a device and you have to remember the feeling, what you're doing is you just remember the feeling and allowing the mind to soften up. You can't use it on the course, so what good is it on the course? But this, you can use it on the course because no one knows what you're doing. So the more you can simplify, the reason I'm saying this is the more you can simplify your your teaching and the students' understanding, I think the more effective you'll be. Now, with that being said, Fred Travis and Harold Harung wrote this book. I mentioned it in my book, which if you're interested, James, you should buy the book. It's very pricey.
Sure.
And it's very pricey. It's like 40 or 50 bucks. It's a brilliant book.
Okay. Sure.
Absolutely brilliant. These guys should win a Nobel Prize in sports because they were the first one to demonstrate scientifically that excellence in sports is due to the brain physiology operating more powerfully. Hello? It ain't rocket science. Yes, go ahead, Jim.
I really appreciate what you're saying. In my case, since I have a background in psychology and sport and all of that, for me it was curiosity, not for me to
Good.
take that knowledge or take those aspects and say, hey, student A, you have to do this because the cerebellum works this way and this is justification. No, but the exercises that I've done are extremely useful because as the stages progress, they add one on top of the other, and I would imagine with the rest of your book, it all goes very nicely together. That you have to have done A before you do B before you do C, even though at a conscious level, I could probably read the book and say, okay, well, in fluid Q1, I do this, in fluid Q2, I do this, in fluid Q3, I do this, and in fluid Q4, I do this. But it's very different, the actual experience of doing them, failing to do them, then trying to grasp the understanding of why I made the failure. I've gone through only a couple of chapters in your book because I really wanted to kind of do them and in this spirit and the way that you mentioned they should be done.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I see your background. I don't have that background, and honestly, I don't want to know any more about the cerebellum than what I know. I tell you, it reminds me of a story. There were a few great putters. I can't remember the older one from the 30s or 40s who was asked to write a book on putting. He never putted well again. He never putted, and then I think Brad Faxon wrote a book on putting. He never putted well again, because what happens is that they start to. It's not. I took the putter out of the bag, and I don't remember anything until I saw the ball land in the hole. It's like, oh, what's going? Yeah, we do this, but he did it so naturally and such a quiet level. And as soon as you bring it to the surface, you're done. It's Vegas, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what you mentioned with Faxon, absolutely true. So maybe it's the wholeness is lost,
gone,
and it can't be recaptured.
Gone. You have polluted yourself. You have polluted your mind. You're sitting on a branch and you just sawed it off. Okay, and what happens with a lot of these players. I mean, I was just thinking of Jordan Spieth recently. He went down the rabbit hole. What was he thinking? He's got it. You got it. Well, now if you do this. No, Lee Jansen, the same thing. Could have been, he could have been one of his mind was as strong as any person's mind, athlete or non-athlete, that I've ever come into contact with. He could walk through fire. But you compromise the ability of the cerebellum to sink the swing, it doesn't matter. If you're a multi-billionaire or you're a pauper, you are in Vegas, baby. Mark.
Okay, this is actually a perfect lead-in, what you've been talking about. Because in your last chapter, we talked about making sure at a level of acceptance of the 10 and wholeness before you walk up to the ball. And you told a great story last week about one of your LPGA players that you took her aside, asked her how things were going. You said they're really not going so well. They go great on the range. And you found out that the fear that she had that was breaking wholeness was due to some comments that were made to her as a youngster. So my question is related to, you're standing back there, you're trying to get to a level of wholeness. So I guess my question is twofold. She started playing better. Why? Because she started going back to her fluid cues and ignoring the fears, or how did she remove the fear block? Because if I'm standing behind a ball and all of a sudden the wind's in my face, I've hit 10 good drives in a row, but I get in my head, I'm going to hook it left, and I'm obviously not ready to walk up to that ball yet. So I keep picturing. How did you help her beyond just realizing what her fear was? How do you get to that level of wholeness while you're standing behind the ball? Is it simply through the numbers and the fluid cues, or is it deeper?
Okay, so there are two questions here. I'll answer one at a time.
Okay.
This girl was scarred on a deep level, but it wasn't a permanent scar. It wasn't, though it was evident enough that it had an effect on her ability to reach a threshold level of wholeness. So what it was, it's like you have a knot and you untie the knot. Well, where'd the knot go? It's gone. The string is, the knot, boom, 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 you untie, it's gone. So all it needed for her, and obviously she had, in order for this to happen, because it hasn't happened with some people, where they did acknowledge, they did acknowledge it, but they couldn't get rid of it. The scar was too deep. It was too permanent. It was too handy. They just couldn't access the cerebellum. And you can only get rid of it when you're a fairly integrated person. You don't have a lot of things in the closet. You got a lot of luggage. You got a lot of troubles here, there, this and that. You're a complicated person. Just acknowledging is not going to let it go. Okay, it's not going to go. But for her, it did, let her go. I mean, it did dissolve. The knot was untied. Now you got a clean piece of rope. Now, you're behind the ball. To answer your second question, you're behind the ball. There's no doubt in your mind, based on going through the program, based on your experience, that you have to reach a threshold level of wholeness or a threshold level of acceptance, and you can't do it. Mark, there's no magic bullet here. There's no you can take.
I'm going to hook it.
Okay, because if there was, I would be the wealthiest man that ever walked on this planet. It's what you bring to the table. It's like what you bring to the table in a relationship. If you're lacking here, okay, well, you're lacking there. Hopefully you'll grow. But if it's not your destiny to be a world-class golfer, I'll give you for instance, all right? I worked with a pro, a mini tour guy who had aspirations to be on tour. And, solid player, a lot of solid players out there. He went through the program. He said, this is mind bending. This is mind transforming. This is what I always have been looking for. Was he in? 1,000%. Did he believe he had to do it? You really don't have a choice. This is not a theory or a philosophy. He couldn't do it. He could not do it.
Why?
Because he's not pre-wired to be able to access silence in pressure situations. He just can't do it. On the range, he's got his PGA card. He's going to win, maybe 2-3 times in his career. On the course, I can't access it. So what this program does, even though he wants to, listen, there's one thing, I've asked so many players that when they play their best, do you really know why you played well? If you ask them enough questions, no. When you play poorly, do you really know why you played? No. Okay. So that's one half of the equation. Everyone knows what they have to experience when they go through this program. It's because it's not my knowledge. It's like, this is what the heart has to experience through the lungs. This is how you produce fluid motion. They all have that intellectual knowledge. They're all on the same level playing field, but some cannot do it. So if you're behind that ball and you have to have a threshold level of wholeness or acceptance, and you can't do it, you just have to live with it, okay? Now, with that being said, because I think James asked about accessing, what can you do to access the cerebellum more efficiently? Are there any books? I would recommend Transcendental Meditation, TM. I've been doing it since 1975. I never missed a meditation. It's 20 minutes twice a day. Without this program, TM, my program would never have been developed. And without this program, because the reason why it took, literally, I've been working on this program since 1975. I feel like it's really completed. Well, I just added a 5th set of fluid cues, okay, last week. So I'm always working on it, but it was really completed about 2 years ago. And the reason why it took so long to develop the program is I had to personally experience deeper levels of my mind so I could understand how dynamism is generated from silence. So I had to own that experience. All my books are completely autobiographical. This is what I experienced. But it took many, many years of meditation to actually experience that. So if you want to culture the mind's ability to access deeper levels of its own nature, deeper levels of silence, deeper levels of wholeness, deeper levels of abstraction, so that becomes more and more of your default state, then I would go online, tm.org, and I would start.
So this fellow that just couldn't do it, what is your parting words to him?
He switched directions. He's a teaching pro.
So he just accepted he was never going to get to that level and gave it up. Yeah. I'm not experiencing that. I mean, I don't feel like I can't reach what I want to reach. I'm getting close. I mean, every day I'm trying your cues and, you know, maybe trying too many cues in one round of golf. But like today, I played right before I came to you, and I got to the 16th hole. It was 2 under par, and it's time to add them up and figure out. And now you're getting way out of the hole. And I just saw the wind in my face. I said, I'm going to hook this. I'm going to hook this. I walked away, took a practice swing, started doing my 9s, and then I just tried it to be set 1 through the whole swing. That seemed to work for me. When I go set 1, I'm telling myself, because the algorithm was in place, just to go with it and surrender to it. And I hit it right down the middle. So I didn't hook it, and it worked. But I was just wondering, you know, how other people experience this.
You know, the highest use of the program is you don't need it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The highest, because remember, this level of the mind is the natural state for the mind to be in. So there are going to be some days where you go out there and you're already there for whatever reason, your biorhythms, you're happy, or it doesn't matter. And you just think about the program and you're already there. You're not using anything specific. So the highest use of the program is it's not needed because this is a default state. This is a natural state. But what the program does, and then if you do use a fluid cue, it's just so faint. It's just like, it's like you walk into a room and there's just a whiff of perfume in the air. You can hardly smell it. Is it there? Is it not there? That's how you want to use the program. That's when, you have a chance for the magic to happen.
Good.
Steve, I got something here for you.
Yeah.
This is actually probably helpful. I don't know if you've read this book. Can you see this at all?
Yeah, I can see it.
The Body Mind Mastery by Dan Millman.
I know, yeah. The, what's his athlete? What's his name? What's his, okay.
He wrote the book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Peaceful Warrior, yeah.
Yeah, great book. I read that book like years ago, and it was really helpful for me to find some of that inner peace. But for James, I figured that would be a good book to, kind of get him in the direction that you were saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thanks, Kevin.
You got
I
it.
appreciate it.
But Stephen, I wanted to express something, that maybe give you some more insight as to why that performance doesn't get to that level from my own experiences as a player.
Please.
And believe me, I was a gifted tour pro on the range, okay? Where you could, like, at will tell me any shot you wanted, I could hit it. I could hit all 9 windows at will. I could, even tell you how far it was going to curve one way or the other.
Wow.
Trajectory. I was very good.
Wow.
But I had the same problem that transferred to the course. All of a sudden, and I'm going to share with you guys something kind of personal to make you maybe understand. that there's some deep-rooted mental DNA, okay, that's there from way, way back that can prevent that success. So for me, it was, you know, I grew up in an abusive household, okay? I had a father that constantly told me that I was useless, good for nothing, and stupid, and used to beat my ass. So it was like, you know, when I got into the arena where it was like, okay, this is for real, this counts now, it's like all of a sudden, you know, it wasn't like experiencing normal nerves. It was nauseating nerves, like to the point of like, oh, wow, you know what? You can't screw up here because, you know, you're going to embarrass yourself in front of all these people. And let me tell you, it was paralyzing. And it took me a long time to learn how to get over that. And by the time I got over it, it was too late for me to pursue it any further. I had to accept that, you know what, let me just take my gifts and use them to teach others. And maybe give it a go when I turn 50. But in reality, you know, what helped me to go beyond and not feel that way was not just acceptance, but forgiveness.
Beautiful.
I had to first forgive my father, and him and I actually had a very long one-on-one that gave me peace over the matter.
Wow.
And it wasn't until that moment that I actually felt the world lifted off my shoulders and felt that it didn't matter whether I failed or succeeded as long as I gave my best. And from that moment forward, I was able to, you know, transfer. But I still never reached my potential because I was being a bit of an idiot and was trying to chase the physical, even though my coach kept trying to get me to chase the mind.
Wow.
And not, you know, it's only maybe the last 3 or 4 years that I've been trying to find that what I had when I hit at my best. And I'm there. Like really, when I tell you I'm there, I'm there. I can now hit shots at will again, and I can do it on the golf course.
Wow.
So, you know, it just goes to show you that there is a lot of emotional baggage and mental baggage that players hold that prevents them from experiencing wholeness because they're so distracted by the potential of something going wrong. The outcome has just totally dictated everything. And it's not the same as having a focus on a target or a ball flight. Man, when you're thinking about, oh my God, don't hit it, you know, right. What are you going to do? The last thing your subconscious mind heard was go right. So that's what you're going to do. You know, and it's interesting how, you know, like I hear players go, oh, well, if I think I'm going to go right, I go left. I says, no, you're just overpowering yourself. You know, but if you truly just shut your mind down and just did it, whatever your subconscious hears, it forces you to do. So, you know, that's kind of my 2 cents about, you know, what I've experienced. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on it.
Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that. That's not an easy story to talk about, and it's very painful memories. So I appreciate hearing that, and I think everyone, all of us do. So, you know, the silver lining is that, you know, you're out of that cloud, and it's very true. You know, in the early days of starting this program, my partner was Buddy Biancalana, who was the starting shortstop for the Royals when they won the World Series, and he had his own experience, and he never was able to repeat it. So he was out of the major leagues in 18 months. But our first client in the company was a starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves. Very, very talented pitcher. Like he went like real high in the draft. Everyone had high hopes for him. And he would start the game. He was in the starting rotation. He would start the game off lights out, okay? Boom, boom, boom. You get to the 4th or 5th inning, wasn't the same pitcher. This really was a consistent pattern. And he shared with us that when he was in Little League growing up, his father was in the stands. And every time he walked somebody or every time he was hit, his father would yell out, you stink. Come on. How can you let this guy, you're no good. Come on. So, you know, when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, those comments they go very, very deep. I don't know how to tell you. And what he would do is he would have these outstanding starts, 4 or 5 innings, 6 innings. And then all he would do is hear what his father said. And then he would sabotage himself because he had, you know, fear of success. Well, my father told me I wasn't that good. Well, okay, let me fulfill that prophecy. And of course, this happens on a very deep level of the human psyche. There's so many different levels that we operate on. And the levels where there's stress, where there's tremendous stress or trauma, those levels, which you're not even aware of, you're not even aware of them, okay? This girl, do you think this Mexican girl, remembered when the parents of her friend said, well, maybe you should take up another sport? You think that's on a conscious level of memory? No, but it's on a very deep embedded level of memory. And what happens, and this just doesn't happen on the golf course, this happens in life. This is why people sabotage themselves, is because their thoughts and their actions and their direction are polluted by these deep levels of stress and trauma that they experience that they may not even remember. They may have been 4 or 5 or 6 years old, but it's embedded in the consciousness. And then your direction in life is connected somehow and influenced, more important, influenced by these stresses. So the good news is that it dissolved for you, Kevin. So what happens is there was a block to your cerebellum. That's it. There was a block. So you couldn't time the swing as well as you wanted. So if there's a block, it doesn't matter what kind of block is. It could be about golf. It could be about life. It could be about your former wife. It could be about your relationship with your children. It could be about your self-image. It could be about a million different things. But if there's a block there, then you go, not only in your swing do you do this, in life, you go into crisis management, okay? It's just not a clear, effortless path because there's a block there. So now, the interesting thing for me is that I came up with this program, and there were many different levels and many different iterations. It just didn't hatch like a full person. Okay, trust me, it was moving around in that womb this way. So, and when I went down to work with David, I had a certain level of program, which is it was only like 1/4 of the program that you're getting now. 25%. That's what I had. But it helped people. It really helped people. But it wasn't what it was now. Then I got to a certain level, another set of fluid cues, a deeper understanding. It helped people more, but they still couldn't do it in competition. And it really frustrated me. Well, why can't they do it? There was this one player I worked with who was the #1 high school player in the country when he graduated. He went to TCU and he got the Ben Hogan Scholarship. This is a top dog. He got on the nationwide tour. Okay, he made like 90,000, the most he made in 1 year. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do the program under the gun. And this is why he's out. He's a teaching pro down in Florida. Great guy, unbelievable talent. You see this guy hit a ball, you say, oh, are you serious? Okay, it's like artwork. So what happened is that there was a block there. There was a block. So it's not his destiny. So if there's a block there and you can't get rid of the block, hey, it ain't in the cards for you, okay? Now you can try as much as you can to refine it, but you may hit the wall eventually. So, getting back to the story. So it's working, it's not working. I mean, I'm a competitor. I know what I still compete. I like to play tennis tournaments, still in my age division. Why? Fear. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Fear. If if you can't access silence, it's all about fear. That's it. End of story. Okay, so where does fear come from? Does fear come from, oh, it's Wednesday and it's just a bad hair day? And oh, no. This fear has 5 origins in my mind. Fear of failure, fear of success, not worthy, not comfortable in your own skin, playing for somebody else, okay? One of those things. And I'll tell you another story. I worked with a pro on the LPGA Tour who had an outstanding season. She was runner-up rookie of the year. Really solid. She completely tanked the second year. I mean, she went south big time. So we had a long talk in the sort of the beginning of or the middle of her third year. And I say, let's say her name is Janet. I said, Janet, because she completely bought into the program. She hired me for 3 years, right? But just because you have the intellectual understanding doesn't mean you have the ability to execute. There's a big difference there. I said, let's talk about this. You want to talk about this? Yes, I need to understand what's going on here. This is my career. So I gave her the 5 levels of fear, which is not, it's a sensitive subject, especially if you're a professional athlete. And you're going into, it's not like I knew this person all my life, I'm just working with her in a teacher-student relationship, but she really trusted me. So you're going into a very sensitive area in someone's life when you start talking about this. So I gave her the 5 levels, and she said, I know what happened. I came out, and this girl is like a warrior, okay? If you're a Green Beret, you want her on your team, right? She walked through fire. In the NCAA championship, in the final round, in the most unbelievable conditions, where the average score was 78, she shot a 66, okay? She's just a warrior. She said, I know what happened. I did so well my rookie year. I wanted to prove to everyone that I am that good. Playing for somebody else. As soon as you start playing for somebody else and you're not 100% playing for you, you are completely over anticipating an action that has not yet been completed. She was already in the beginning of the season anticipating where she was going to be at the end to prove to the LPGA, to prove to all the people on the social media, to prove to her parents, her coaches, whomever, that this was not a fluke. I am this good, and I am going to show you and prove to you that this good. So she won like half the amount of money. She won like $400,000 her first year, okay? She won probably less than half. Then she realized it, and I don't know, should I give it away or should I not give it away? She won again on the LPGA Tour. Let's put it that way, okay? And in a serious tournament, not Safeway Open. They're all serious, but this was a serious, not a major, but not too far beneath the major. So this is the human psyche. So, the next level of instruction, if you're an instructor and you buy into this, which hopefully you do, and you're working with competitive players, you're working with talented players, and they completely buy into the program, and you see they can do it on the range, they can do it in a practice round, they can't do it under the gun, then you have to sit down with them and have a come to Jesus meeting and ask them the $64,000 question. Where does the fear come from? And they will know. You may be able to kid other individuals. You're not going to be able to kid yourself if you trust this coach, hopefully you guys, and they will know. Because I knew where my fear came from in college. So then you have to work on it to dissolve that. Because if you don't dissolve that, if you don't get rid of that barrier from accessing deeper levels of silence, accessing the fluid motion factor, you'll never make it. Doesn't matter how much talent you have. It's not going to happen. Something very specific has to happen during the swing in the mind. And if that doesn't happen, half the time you're going to be in Vegas.
You know, I got another one for you real quick before I forget. This also helped me. I forgot to mention this. Is I was talking with an older pro that I'm friends with who's a really smart guy. And I never considered the question until he asked me, he says, do you love to win more than you hate or fear to lose? And I go, wow. I says, you hit something on the head there, because every time I've been in contention and had a chance to win, I choked. And that comes back to what you're saying about the fear. So ever since then, I've been meditating on loving to win and trying to get the negative out of my conscious.
Right, because here's the thing, in my opinion, okay, though it's the opposite of what Tiger said. You know, Tiger said in a 60 Minutes interview, he said, I just hate to lose. I don't want to, I just don't hate to lose, okay? Me, okay, I love to win. The losing, if someone asked me that question, oh, I want to win, okay? Because I think, and again, Tiger is the exception, so who am I to say that if you hate to lose, then it's a self-image thing, okay? You don't want to be looked upon as a loser. But Tiger said that with, you know, with Morally Safer in that 60 Minutes, I hate to lose. I don't want to lose in anything. So, I acquiesce to that. But for me personally, and I think for most people, you know, if they had a choice, they would say, I want to win, okay? And that overrides the disappointment, you know, of hating to lose, or not overrides it, but it's more important. Okay, guys, we'll wrap it up. This was great. A lot of good questions. The usual suspects. So maybe we'll wait a week until next Monday, give you guys all a chance to go through everything. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, you know, feel free to send them to me, contact me, and I really appreciate your support, and it's a real pleasure to work with all of you.
Same here, Stephen. Look forward to next Monday.
All right.
Thank you. See you guys.
Steve.
Bye.
All right, Chairman. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was really good.